XRP Manipulation Ending. Now, there's still going to be a little bit of manipulation. There always will be. We're dealing with Wall Street. We're dealing with the suits. They can be a little bit shady. But I'm talking about the suits serving and supposed to be serving our people in the United States government. Now, we call them the bureaucracy beast, and we've been up against this in the Ripple XRP community for over 4.5 years. Now, finally, the lawsuit has ended. And the reason why I'm titling this episode here XRP Manipulation Ending is I'm specifically speaking of the manipulation from our government, from the SEC and others who have held back XRP within their own quote unquote power. This is all coming to an end. And I'm going to play a clip here from the CEO of Van Eck, who is from Wall Street and understands that the SEC overreach was hindering XRP and others. But that's all coming to an end, right? With the Genius Stablecoin Act being passed, most of that jurisdiction moving to the OCC, and then with the Clarity Act, a lot of the jurisdiction moves to the CFTC. So the last way that they can hold XRP back is by delaying and pushing back the XRP ETFs. But the final deadlines for the XRP ETFs are approaching and coming up very quickly here in October for most of them. I think there's like 6 XRP ETFs where the final deadline is October, and there's like 1 in November. And there's a list of over 15 other XRP ETFs as well. There's dozens of XRP ETFs that are going to be going live by the end of this year. But the big one's going to be the spot ETFs because they actually have to physically back the ETF with real XRP. There's not a derivative product, a leverage product that's not physically backed. These spot ETFs have to be backed by XRP. And here's the kicker. By the injunction still being in place, where Ripple can't sell to institutional partners, that was deemed an investment contract. And the judge says, you can't do that. And then actually kept the injunction in place, even though the SEC and Ripple both asked for it to be lifted. So what happens now is Ripple can only sell XRP to institutional partners if it's structured in a different way that doesn't meet the investment contract structure that was ruled as a security by the judge. But the other thing that happens here is that they can't sell to these ETF issuers, right? And what happens is the ETF issuers are going to have to get the XRP from the centralized exchanges. Now, Ripple has the control lever of how much XRP they want to release from the escrow and put into circulation. And so they can choose to either throttle that up, or if they kind of just kept it the same as it has been, there's only so much XRP to go around. And so if the ETF issuers are having to go to centralized exchanges and OTC desks to scoop up what XRP they can, this could actually drive a significant supply shock on XRP. But I want everybody to really understand the XRP is on its way to double digits, and that's just based off of simple math, hard data, by the way, simple math and conservative assumptions. You want to talk about higher prices, we can do that too. But I'm just getting out the base case, keeping it conservative and easy, referring back to the data so that all of our new listeners can understand this opportunity for what it really is. So I'm going to run this clip here, Van Eck CEO explaining XRP and the SEC. Take a quick listen in on this one.
So in the early days, every ETF needed SEC approval. So you can imagine that was a lot of back and forth, and that's been more standardized. And that's why they're talking about doing a rule for crypto ETPs now as well, because the SEC staff does not want to be commenting on every, XRP leveraged product, right? So, yeah, I would say the SEC, it's interesting how the SEC's role is kind of diminished, I would say, because if you look at stablecoin legislation, a lot of it's going to the OCC, right? They're not checking they're not doing the audits. And then if this sort of market structure bill passes, a lot of the authority is going to go to the CFTC, right? So it's in a way, I think institutionally, this is a whole separate podcast, but they were sort of so aggressive or incompetent or whatever word you want to use during the last 5-year stretch that the Capitol Hill has said no. To stay in your lane, SEC. So.
And what happens too, it's not only the ETF unlocks that allow 401ks, pension funds, hedge funds, and everybody else to get exposure through those trusted products. It's also going to be Ripple's institutional partners that are now going to feel comfortable coming out and saying, yes, we are partnered up with Ripple and we are using XRP. And what's really going to be exciting to see is if we get revealed, how much XRP some of these institutions may have already acquired. Now, this is one institution that Ripple's been partnered up with quite some time, but we finally have direct confirmation from Thunes and Ripple combining Thunes network with Ripple's blockchain-powered payment solution to allow Ripple's enterprise customers to more easily withdraw funds in new currencies and countries. This has always been hard to confirm in print. Now we have it. Quotes indicate blockchain assets. By supporting real-time settlement and deep local integrations, we are enabling digital asset companies to deliver seamless, compliant, and accessible cross-border payments at scale. This partnership not only facilitates seamless, low-cost transactions, but also supports the growing demand for innovative, blockchain-powered financial solutions globally. Now, it's important, I'm going to break this down in a separate video, is XRP gateways and gatekeepers. Because what happens is the more tokenized assets on the ledger, the more access for on-ramping. For example, Bank of America can decide to do tokenized deposits or their own stablecoin on the XRP ledger. So then you'd be able to go to your Bank of America and you'd be able to say, hey, I would like to get exposure to, ROUSD on the XRP ledger. I would like to get exposure to the Brazilian real on the XRP ledger. But you're going to go through Bank of America, right? So you're going to, maybe transfer in or deposit your deposit tokens, right? They'll have tokenized deposits on the XRP ledger, and they'll convert you over to ROUSD, Brazilian real, or whatever currency you want, right? Or you could just convert to XRP. But here's where more and more of these gatekeepers, is what we can call them, right? They're going to bring more gateways, and these are more on-ramps to the XRP ledger by the institutional partners that Ripple's been working with, whether it be Thunes, Bank of America. And the big unlock, I think, is going to be the partners that are here in America that have been scared to come out and admit, yeah, we're partnered up with Ripple. And I also think that they've had to stall all this back as long as possible because Ripple and XRP has been the biggest threats to the incumbents. And they also see the opportunity for what it is. You want to get on board. You want to pick up your bag on the low before you unleash XRP inflows with ETFs, Clarity Act allowing institutional adoption and DeFi at scale. Before that, you want to get your bag set. You want to have your XRP strategy ready to go. And this is why BlackRock won't say a word about XRP, right? Now, they won't come out and say that we're not going to launch an XRP ETF. They just say, oh, we can't talk about that, Charlie, right? Remember the old clip there, Larry Fink with Charlie Gasparino on Fox Business? But what happens here now is we have an opportunity. It's September 2nd, choppy August, bled out a lot of people, liquidated a lot of people. And this is exactly what the market makers do before they unlock and allow us to fly. And they want to juice these markets. Once again, they've already made their position. And so the SEC's final act of manipulation has been stalling out the ETFs going live. Now, they have their excuses. We want 6 months trading on futures. We want this, we want that. Well, now we have it. We're coming up on the final deadlines. The manipulation from the SEC and our government against XRP and Ripple is coming to an end. And the unlock on the other side of this is going to be absolutely massive. And we can start to quantify it. But what happens is people get too bearish because they want lower entries and FUD sells during consolidation periods. But we have been over here sticking to our order book analysis. We could see too much buy pressure on XRP at the $2.70 range. Now XRP is starting to print an inverse head and shoulders pattern. The breakout is near. And you'll note that all during the last month, did we clickbait with any XRP crash titles, thumbnails, anything? No. Absolutely not. We stuck to the fundamentals. We showed you where this thing's going. And the more that they bled this thing out and manipulated it lower, the more of an opportunity you had to acquire XRP. The more of an opportunity I had to load up on my XRP long position. Now, here's the inverse head and shoulders that I'm seeing on the chart right now. You guys let me know what you're seeing. So we have our neckline right up here at 366. That's the new all-time high that we've printed. The XRP all-time high is not 380. It is 366, just to be clear. 380 was only hit on one exchange out of Korea in 2018. Nobody actually bought or sold XRP at 380, okay? That was a false reading. 366, the all-time high that we hit here in July, that is the all-time high. And this is the neckline of our inverse head and shoulders. This is your first shoulder right here down to 272. We wanted to see 272 hold. It didn't. We did break through our structure. I drew this trend line right here. Oh no, 270, right? This is your head. Now we print out another shoulder, and then eventually we will break out from this neckline, and we go right on into this final purple box that I've drawn right here. The final purple box between here and October 17th. Once again, here's your neckline. Here's your first shoulder. Your head now sits down here at 270, 269 even on some exchanges. That's your head. And even if they did smack us up one more time, let me be very clear. Even if they did smack us up one more time and send us down to 260, I know a lot of people have been wanting that. Once again, a lot of people want lower entries. I get you. I know some people want XRP to go back below $1. Not going to happen. I'm sorry. But even if we did, pull back here a little bit lower, you still got your head coming in here. You got your first shoulder, right? So you're going to print out another shoulder, and then we're going to be off to the races, and we break out above the neckline is how these head and shoulders patterns work out. Here it is, textbook from Investopedia.com. So you got your neckline, first shoulder, your head is the lowest point. You go back up to your neckline, so that would send us back to 366. We'll get a little sell-off back down to like 340, 330, and then we get the final breakout above the neckline to all-time high for XRP. That's the setup that I'm looking at right now on XRP, and why I'm saying that the XRP manipulation is ending. And I'm specifically speaking of the manipulation from our SEC and government. You're still going to see manipulation from the market makers, exchanges, and the suits on Wall Street. They're going to find different ways and instruments that they can try to play with XRP, but they're going to have to do so at a much higher price. After the ETFs went live for gold, it did a 5x. After the ETFs went live for silver, it did a 10x. After the ETFs went live for Bitcoin, well, the run-up was about 80% leading up to the ETFs going live. Short pullback of 30%, but then it blasted off to a new all-time high before the halving. It literally broke up the 4-year cycle. It disrupted the whole halving cycle for Bitcoin. The ETFs did. Ethereum, well, Ethereum's struggling. I could do a whole other show on that, but I don't want to spend time. If you don't have nothing nice to say, Mama said don't say anything at all. I'll let the Ethereum bros make up their excuses for that. XRP is going to see more inflows from Ethereum than Ethereum ETFs did, and it might even give the Bitcoin ETFs a run for their money. So once again, the XRP manipulation is ending. You're printing out your lows. We're bottoming out right now. I've added to my XRP long. Okay, this thing's about to go higher. Stay ready. Stay locked in. Always keep some extra liquidity just to stay safe, but we're not going anywhere. I hope you guys appreciate this quick update. We're going to be back here live tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern for a full breakdown. I appreciate your support. If you guys can like this video on the way out, we would greatly appreciate that. And everything is at my website, zachrector.com. God bless you all. I am your host, Zach Rector. I really appreciate all of the love and support. If you want to support the channel, just remember that you can start by smashing that thumbs up for me, sharing this content far and wide, and everything else is at my website.